right, we now want to welcome back onto the Forever Blue Shirts, the one and only Colin Stephenson. Colin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Hockey season's back, and it's we had our first the Rangers had their first game last night, and as we speak, and they were in Buffalo. Now we're in Columbus. Day's beautiful here, warm. So it's good to get these cold weather cities out of the way in October before it gets too cold, and we're good to go.
Absolutely. Well, like you mentioned, we can finally stop talking about projections and all the guesswork that has to be done in the preseason and in the offseason. The Rangers beating Buffalo 5-1 on Thursday. I think that line of Artemi Panarin, Filipino, and Alexis Lafrenière really dominated that game. From your eyes, why were they able to work so well in Buffalo?
Uh, I think it's a line that could be good because I think that Artemi Panarin and Filipino, I think, can have chemistry, right? Which is what Panarin's been looking for ever since Ryan Strome left. Panarin was great. He was tremendous in the game. Just he looked like he had a lot of energy. He looked like he was a hungry guy with lots of motivation. And he was seeing the puck and he was being aggressive with it. And so I think that, so there's that. There's the Panarin factor. And then I think Hedl missed most of training camp with an injury, an unspecified injury. They say upper body. So I don't know what it was, although he wasn't taking faceoffs. So that kind of gives kind of a clue that it might be like some sort of shoulder or arm or wrist or something like that. But I have a feeling that those two can create chemistry together. But for the first night, it was Panarin was just unbelievable, and Lafrenière, who had a really miserable preseason and was a cause of great concern among the faithful. Played a strong game as well. He went to the net. Panarin found him. They scored the goal 4 minutes in, or 3 minutes and 47 seconds in, and that got him started on the right track. And I think they just kind of got started hot early and just kept rolling.
You mentioned Alexis Lafrenière. I don't think I've ever seen anybody, or at least a bunch of people, jump on somebody in the preseason like that. I mean, we got to take a step back for a second and realize that it was just a preseason. But, with that being said, how important is it for him to start off fast? Obviously, he got the goal and the assist last night, looked very good on the ice, but obviously that's got to continue from game to game.
Yeah, to me, I think it's very important, of course. It's always important for everybody to start fast if you can. But I think in his case, I think there's a confidence thing happening there where that plays a part of it. I mean, this guy coming out of junior hockey in 2020 was supposed to be the next big name, right? I mean, he wasn't just supposed to be a first round pick or a number one overall. He was supposed to be the next guy. He got exceptional status in the Quebec League and two-time MVP and all that kind of stuff. And people, in Canada who watch those games, can't understand like why he hasn't been that player in the NHL. And to some degree, it's because he hasn't been given the opportunity by the Rangers. He came in as a left wing and he had Panarin and Chris Kreider ahead of him, and that limited his opportunities. They tried to switch him to the right wing, but it never really lasted. Coaches would move him back to the left wing and play him on the third line. And so now, that's the backstory, right? And that's why people jumped on him in the preseason, because this was the opportunity for him that everybody saw. He's you got a new coach coming in, and he's gonna play the right wing. The coach has said he's gonna give him opportunity, and people wanted to see him take it and run with it in the preseason, and he just didn't. And some of that is on him. Some of that, though, is on the people that he played with. I mean, the first game he played on that first line, he played with Mika Zibanejad. And Zibanejad, it was his first preseason game. He had an injury and he had missed the second preseason game. And so now he was playing in the third preseason game, but it was his first game. And Zibanejad was terrible that game. And so I think if you're playing on Zibanejad's line and he's terrible, I mean, it's tough for you to then be good. And then I think the next game, he ended up playing on Panarin's line, and that was Panarin's first game in the preseason, and he was terrible. He was even worse than Zibanejad was. And so, yeah, that line of Panarin and Trocheck and Lafrenière was terrible. They were all -3 in the first period, But I think, when one guy is as bad as Panarin was that night, it's hard for the line to do well. So, not to make excuses for him, but you could kind of see, well, maybe he should have risen above that and he didn't. But I think people just kind of were anticipating and hoping that, he would kind of, playing right wing, he would show them something that they haven't really seen. And I guess he waited for the regular season opener before he did that.
On the post game, Steve Alliquette mentioned the trust aspect between Panarin and his new line mates in both Hedel and Lafrenière. If they're able to gain that trust, and specifically talking about that first goal, Lafrenière knowing, or Panarin knowing Lafrenière is going to be there at the net, how dangerous this line can get if Panarin really trusts both Hedel and Lafrenière.
Yes, no, absolutely. And, and that's why I say that Panarin is the key to the line. He's the best player on the line. But, I think he was playing such a strong game, Panarin, that he was creating stuff for the other guys. And the other guys, believe me, are ecstatic to play with Panarin because they know he's going to create for them. And they know they're going to have opportunities. And they certainly had them on Thursday night. And Lafreniere's goal, it couldn't have been easier. He drove the net, the guy put it on his tape, and the goal was wide open in front of him because the goalie was caught out of position. So, it's a great way for him to start the season, and you just hope that, that will help, you hope for his sake, I should say, that will help his confidence, because I think his confidence has taken a hit in his first 3 years with the Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from the glitz and glam of the offense and special teams, I think the earliest memory I have of the 1-3-1 is Tampa Bay doing it against the Peter Laviolette Flyers team back in 2011. The Rangers incorporating that. Yesterday really slowed down Buffalo, a very quick team. Just, do you expect to see that a little bit more come this year, just against teams like Buffalo, maybe, a New Jersey that really ran up and down on the Rangers a season ago?
Absolutely. They've been working on it quite a bit, almost every day in training camp and in the preseason. It was on full display Thursday night against Buffalo. And you're right, that is a fast team, and that does slow fast teams down. And the interesting thing was, after the game, someone asked Laviolette about the 1-3-1, and of course it was a great game and everybody played well and all that. And Laviolette said something like, kind of laughed. He says, of all the things, that's the one thing I want to go back and look at, because, and he said, expanded today a little bit more and said, the guys need to be in better position. It's still not automatic for them to do some of these things. And they just have to position, it might mean being, 1 or 2 feet, to the left or the right, of where they are. So, there's 81 games left. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have a handle on it before too long.
Well, another thing that they really got into yesterday that they didn't last year was the forecheck. And one guy in specific, Will Cooley, it's kind of how he made this team, was relentless in the forecheck, forcing turnovers. Just what he brings to this team, and, for him to stay on this team this year, you're going to need to do more of what he did yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's, people in the training camp, the 2 rookies stood out, right? Cooley and Brennan Othmann both stood out. I think Othmann showed that he can certainly play with these guys and he can play at this level. But everybody kind of expected that, okay, well, if they're not going to get big minutes up here, then they're better off going to Hartford to get the big minutes down there. And, I always felt like if one of the 2 of them were going to stay, it was always going to be Cooley that had the better chance to do it, because A, he's a year older and he had, played professional hockey last year. He played in the American League. But B, because of his body. He's a big body and he can get in and play that forechecking role on a third line and do what he did Thursday night, probably better than Othmann. Not that Othmann can't forecheck, and not that Othmann's not willing to throw his body around. He is. He can, and he is. He's just a little bit, a lot smaller, and he's got less body to throw around. Whereas with Cooley, I think he can be more effective in that third line role. So, and I think too, obviously the potential is there. I shouldn't say obviously. The potential is probably there that he can go beyond the third line role, but I think he can play that third line role right now, and that's why he's here.
So as someone that was introduced to not only just hockey, but the Rangers during the John Tortorella era of Rangers hockey, they were very big on blocking shots. And we saw it last night. I believe it was either the fourth or fifth most blocked shots in franchise history last night in Buffalo. Just how important shot blocking is going to be as an emphasis for this year.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. There was the one penalty kill. I was looking at it, and Trouba blocked, I don't know how many shots he blocked on that one particular penalty kill. I mean, he blocked 8 for the game, which sounds like a lot to me. So they had 23 altogether. Trouba's credited with 8. Nick Bonino's credited with 4. It's, if you look at it, they blocked 23 shots, and Igor Shesterkin only saw 25 shots on goal. He made 24 saves. So, I mean, they blocked as many shots almost as he did. And it's just it is a thing that the guys take pride in. I know Trouba takes great pride in it, and they work on it. And that's part of, Laviolette's penalty killing system, from what I can gather. Not that he's going to draw it up on a blackboard for me, but I think they're getting into shooting lanes and they're sacrificing their bodies. And obviously it worked in game 1, and as Laviolette himself said, it's only one game. So, we can't lose our minds about it. We can't, think they're going to go 82-0 and win the cup, but it's a good start.
Yeah, Laviolette did mention he's not throwing game plans in the newspaper throughout the season.
Nope.
But looking forward into the first quarter, I won't go a full season yet to look forward to. The first quarter of this season, what are you hoping to gain from this team? What are you hoping to learn from this team?
Well, first of all, I want to see Igor Shesterkin. Igor looks like a man who's really determined to be better than he was last year. If you remember 2 years ago when he won the Vezina Trophy, his numbers were off the charts. And last year, they were good, but, not Igor good, right? I mean, 916 save percentage would be good for most guys, but not for Igor. And, he was hard on himself. He said on the first day of camp that, he's working hard to be less hard on himself. And he's come into camp really looking sharp in all the practices and the preseason games and such. And I think if Igor is going to be better than he was last season and closer to what he was 2 seasons ago when he won the Vezina and was a finalist for the Hart Trophy, then I think, this team's going to be in really good shape, but then, the other stuff that you want to look forward to is to see Lafrenière and Hedel and Capo Caco, who is, the other member of the kid line, which is now broken up. You want to see those kids do well. You want to see them take, quote unquote, the next step. I have less worries about Caco. I think Caco is probably the safest bet of all of those 3. I think Hedel is a safe bet too, although the worry I have would be, whether he can stay healthy. I mean, he's had some injury history and stuff. Lafrenière is the one to me that still is a question mark, and it's good that he got off to a great start in the first game. But those are the types of things you want to see, I think, from individuals in that first quarter of the season. You want to see these guys get off to a good start, because good starts then, can build confidence, which of course is going to help you later on down the line. So, that's what I'm looking for. And then, they're going to get more familiar and more comfortable playing this 1-3-1. It's not just the neutral zone stuff too. There's other defensive principles and offensive principles that are different from what they did last year. I think, recalling what someone said earlier in training camp, I think defensive zone wise, I think they're more of a man on man, whereas, they might have been more zone in the past. So, I mean, that's something that they're going to have to get used to as well. So it's not just the neutral stuff; it's defensive zone stuff. And then offensively, the cycling that they do is probably a little bit different than what they've done in the past. So, there are all the system stuffs that they have to learn, and that's obviously what you're going to do over the first part of the season. So yeah, I mean, systems, kids, and the goalie.
Love it. And when you talk about expectations, obviously 2 years ago, not a ton going into the year. Make the conference final last year, a ton of expectations knocked out in the first round. This year, it seems like those expectations for this team in the media and just on the outside world in general, a little bit more scaled back than what they were last year. Do you feel like this team is a bit underrated, or are they properly rated where they're at?
Well, it depends on the day. I've seen a lot of different opinions from media people, myself included. Some of us think that they're going to be better than they were last year, which means more points, and they're going to go further. And other people think that they're not. And I look, the only team, like, to me, and I saw it all of last season throughout the entire regular season. I think they've got a matchup problem with the Devils, right? So the Devils scare me if I'm a Ranger fan right now. The other teams I'm less worried about, right? Carolina is very, very good, but I don't think the Rangers have a matchup problem with Carolina the same way they do with the Devils. I mean, I don't remember exactly what they did in the regular season against Carolina last year, but it's not like they got swept. And obviously they beat them in the playoffs 2 years ago. So the Devils trouble me if I'm a Ranger fan. Other than that, I think the Rangers stack up pretty well against the rest of the league. So I would imagine that, if you're asking me, I think they're gonna do better than last year. They're gonna have more points in the regular season, and they're gonna get past the first round, unless they run into the Devils. But I think, as far as the consensus, I don't know that there is a consensus. I think most of us, have differing views.
Yeah, when you tweeted it, speaking about the Devils, about Akira Schmid starting in that preseason game, it hit me. It hit me like a Mack truck, just back to last year. It was just the flashbacks, and they were not pretty.
Yeah, you know what? And what was obviously Lindy Ruff did a really good coaching job in that series. I mean, they lost the first two games at home. He changed goalies, put in a guy nobody had heard of. And I don't think Akira Schmid was all that great. I mean, I think he was just huge, right? He takes up a lot of the net. I don't think the Rangers did enough. I don't know if they were psyched out by it or what, or they were overconfident, what it was. But I don't think that I don't know how good Akira Schmid is. I don't. I'm gonna have to see it for myself this year. Vanacek, I think, is a decent goalie. He's fine. But almost every time the Rangers play, they're going to have the edge in goal, right? There's a short list of teams that have goaltending that I would consider, on the same level as Igor, and maybe the Islanders, maybe Winnipeg, a couple of the teams, Tampa Bay, if when Vasilevsky comes back, and if he comes back as good as he has been. But beyond that, I don't think the Devils' goaltending matches up. I don't think Carolina's goaltending stacks up. Certainly Pittsburgh, I don't think their goaltending stacks up. So, most nights I'm going to give the Rangers the edge in goal, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, that Akira Schmid thing, it could be a thing that gets into people's heads. You know what I mean? Like, you see this big guy, and you remember what he did to you last spring, and we'll see. It's to be seen.
Yeah, luckily for the time being, we could all move past it. We're back to playing regular season hockey and have other things to worry about than whatever happened in last year's playoffs. But Colin, thank you very much for joining us. Looking forward to the coverage this year. Going to be following you along, and get some rest while you can. I know now the sprint's starting right now.
It's starting right now, man. And we're starting on the road. We're going to go home for three games or 2 games during the week, and then right back out on the road. So it's going to be a marathon and not a sprint, as they say.
All right. Thank you very much, Colin. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.